This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. 9 reported dead, scores injured and missing. That is the toll emerging tonight from the confusion following a succession of blasts at the Pacific Engineering and Production Company plant in Henderson, Nevada. That's about 15 miles southeast of Las Vegas. Terry Drinkwater in Los Angeles narrates pictures of the rocket fuel fire.
The series of massive explosions demolished the plant where additives for NASA's space shuttle rocket fuel were produced. The blast shaking home video cameras miles away.
Oh, it just blew again. It just blew again. Gonna be a big bang in a minute.
At least one person was reported killed. Authorities fear the death toll may rise because many are unaccounted for. There were more than 100 injured. Flying debris struck workers being evacuated from a nearby marshmallow factory. There were concussions, broken arms and legs, and many broken eardrums. Searchers combed the nearby desert for victims. Windows were shattered, some miles away. Walls buckled, and doors were blown off their hinges in a nearby housing development. Meanwhile, toxic smoke continued to billow above the disaster area. Favorable winds kept the worst of it away from the more populous area of Las Vegas. But the Green Valley subdivision of Henderson, population 25,000, was evacuated. Meanwhile, residents over a wide area were ordered to stay indoors. The owner of the plant said a small fire started first. He had 10 minutes, he said, to evacuate the 108 employees before the first blast occurred. Most ran to safety. This was a disaster, said a fire chief, but it could have been much worse. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
More questions today about U.S. Attorney General Ed Meese's fitness in office. These new questions come as Meese is trying to portray the Justice Department as able to take care of business. He's reportedly about to name a third-choice nominee for a top Justice Department job. CBS News correspondent Robert Shackney has the latest.
No, not today.
It was another bad day for the Attorney General. New charges about his conduct in office, charges which raise fresh questions about his ethics. On Capitol Hill, in a formal report made public today, a Senate subcommittee charged that Meese, when he was White House counselor, violated the White House's own ethics rules by helping 2 friends win an Army contract for the now bankrupt WedTech Corporation.
This could put additional pressure on Mr. Meese to resign, but there's a lot of other reasons why he should have resigned some time ago.
The Senate report charges that Meese failed to observe White House policy on contacts with procurement officials, which failure resulted in improper favoritism, and that the Army would not have awarded the engine contract to WedTech but for White House, meaning Meese's, intervention. The Senate report says Meese acted at the request of his friend, lawyer E. Robert Wallach, who's since been indicted for illegally seeking favors for WedTech. Then there's the case of the baby Bells. Meese's own attorneys confirmed today that lawyer Wallach had urged Meese to look into easing antitrust restrictions on regional telephone companies. Meese owned stock in the Baby Bell companies at the time, but there's no evidence Wallach knew that. And the government's ethics office launched an inquiry today into Meese's decision to allow his name and letterhead to be used in promoting a private conference in Japan. The letter invited more than 30,000 lawyers and businessmen to attend the meeting with Meese. The company making travel arrangements for the conference stood to make a profit.
There was nothing that was objectionable about this trip, and the Attorney General's role in this matter is entirely appropriate.
And it was learned today that Meese has finally found a willing candidate for the job of Deputy Attorney General, his third choice. Salt Lake City lawyer Harold Christensen has never held government office.
I feel that Mr. Meese is an honorable man and a fine public servant. I feel that way. And I would like to be identified with the Justice Department.
Even under Ed Meese, it does.
Legal experts say that the latest charges don't appear to contain evidence of crimes that could lead to an indictment. But it does add up to more political embarrassment, more pressure on Meese to quit. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
This is deadline day for millions of illegal immigrants in the USA. It's the end of the government's offer of amnesty. David Dow is watching the last-minute lines to be legal.
Across the country today, thousands of illegal aliens lined up to beat the midnight amnesty deadline amid doses of drama and confusion. Some in New York lines with U.S.-born children learned they may have 2 more weeks to apply thanks to a federal court decision. The crowds in Los Angeles included dozens of applicants for political asylum who mistakenly thought the deadline applied to them too. By this afternoon, the year-long stream of amnesty applicants had reached about 2 million from at least 170 countries, many hoping for better jobs and a better future. What do you hope to do?
Become either journalist or psychologist.
So I just feel like I'm legal and can do the things other people can do.
Luis Guerrero, just granted amnesty, already has plans for his next vacation, a family reunion in Mexico. He can legally come back now. Are you happy you applied for amnesty?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Somewhere between 2 and 5 million immigrants will remain here illegally. Like those who gathered last night in Los Angeles, they're unable to qualify for amnesty.
I can't go back. You know the situation in my country. If I go back, maybe I can get killed.
The full force of penalties for employers who hire the undocumented doesn't hit until June 1st. Last night, the illegal flow continued across the U.S.-Mexican border. Edgar says he arrived just a month ago and immediately found work in a restaurant. There's evidence that thousands are finding work with the use of false documents, despite raids against forgers in New York and California.
There is no doubt about it. We've seen more of these cases coming through since the legalization program was put into effect.
A student?
Meanwhile, the amnesty line now shifts to the classroom, where thousands will seek the language training they need for permanent U.S. residents. David Dow, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Pro-Iranian kidnappers in Beirut today released the last 3 of their French hostages. They had been held since 1985. The news was announced in France by Prime Minister Jacques Chirac at a campaign rally. Chirac is the underdog in Sunday's runoff election against President Mitterrand. He said nothing about how the hostages' release was obtained. However, the Reuters news agency quoted a senior Muslim source in Beirut as saying the French paid a ransom of more than $26 million and agreed to supply weapons and spare parts to Iran through an unidentified third party. 18 foreign hostages are still held in Beirut, including 9 Americans. Israeli troops pushed deeper into South Lebanon today, and they fought a bloody battle with pro-Iranian guerrillas in a village 12 miles north of the border. Tonight, the Israeli army said the operation was over. Bob Simon has our report cleared by Israeli censors.
Until today, there'd been a lot of sound and fury signifying very little. That changed this morning when Israelis stormed a village called Maidun, a hilltop stronghold of Hezbollah fighters trained by Iranian Revolutionary Guards. The Israelis attacked with helicopters, artillery, and armor, but they had underestimated Hezbollah numbers and fortifications. The battle lasted 6 hours. 40 Hezbollah died, 3 Israelis were killed, 17 were wounded, but it could have been a lot worse. Maidun is 3 miles from Syrian lines, but they understood apparently that the Israelis did not intend to go further.
It seems that they have learned the message. They understood the message, and they did not move their troops. They did not engage in any combat.
In other engagements, the Israelis took some prisoners, treated some men they had wounded, and distributed leaflets, lots of leaflets. The command claims the idea was not so much to find the fighters as to educate the Lebanese villagers, to warn them against sheltering the PLO. The Israelis sweep southern Lebanon regularly, and the PLO keeps coming back. At best, Israel has bought little time. But with today's casualties, Defense Minister Rabin will be at pains to justify the operation, particularly since the decision to go so close to Syrian forces was his and his alone. Reliable sources report that Rabin had not informed Prime Minister Shamir or Foreign Minister Perez of his intention to attack the village of Maidun, that they learned about it when the battle was underway this morning. Some cabinet members were outraged, notably Trade Minister Sharon, who in 1982, when he was defense minister, never told the cabinet that he intended to invade Beirut. This time, the Israelis confounded the skeptics and got out quickly, but not forever. Farewell till the next time was the unspoken message as hundreds of soldiers rolled home this evening, marking the end of another Lebanese adventure, not the first, almost certainly not the last. Bob Simon, CBS News, on the border.
Roman Catholic Church leaders called for peace talks in Poland today, but the government said that the outlawed Solidarity Union was taking a hard line. The union said the same thing about the government. Solidarity founder Lech Wałęsa threatened to mobilize the whole country in support of shipyard workers in Gdansk on strike for a third day. Students also occupied the university in Gdansk and said they were beginning a sit-in strike. But police were out in force around the strike areas, and a spokesman in Warsaw said the government, quote, will not allow anarchy. Still to come on the CBS Evening News, Eric Ingberg on making AIDS information a federal case, a pamphlet headed for your mailbox. And Jerry Bowen on the case for speeding up justice by renting a judge.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
It takes time to get your gal to see the light. It takes time. It isn't always love inside. From the first little glance till she's ready for romance. Remember, little man, it takes time. It takes time to make the coffee percolate. It takes time to get your gal to set the date. From the first moonlit walk till you get the baby talk.
Introducing the Elegance Collection from Citizen.
Yeah.
A while back, I had this sprained ankle. I didn't take aspirin or Tylenol. My doctor gave me Advil. It worked on the pain, and Advil was gentler to my stomach than aspirin. Advil, tablets and caplets, advanced medicine for pain.
Troubled by bad breath? Then have a Milk-Bone dog biscuit to help scrape away plaque and food particles to give you cleaner teeth, fresher breath. Get Milk-Bone because, naturally, every dog wants fresher breath.
Michael Dukakis is in striking distance of a first-ballot victory for the Democratic presidential nomination. After his heavy margin wins over Jesse Jackson in Ohio and Indiana last night, Dukakis now is far and away the frontrunner. Jackson won big in the District of Columbia last night, but few delegates were at stake. A Dukakis campaign official this evening told CBS News the numbers for a first-ballot victory appear to be in reach. This is in line with the latest CBS News estimate that Dukakis needs to win 51% of the delegates still at stake to get the 2,082 required for nomination. Jackson needs 99.5% of the remaining delegates. Against that backdrop, CBS News chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports tonight on the positioning and problems of Dukakis for a fall campaign against George Bush.
The strategy is clear. George Bush is trying now at every stop to tie Michael Dukakis to Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale, which Bush translates to mean weak national defense and higher taxes.
Mike Dukakis and Jesse Jackson are trying to sell that same old Democratic bill of goods. More taxes, more spending, more government control over your lives.
Dukakis must fashion a new message that appeals to Democrats but avoids the trap that defeated 4 of the last 5 Democratic presidential nominees.
What they're going to have to do is begin with the premise that they're not going to raise taxes and they're not going to gut defense.
Bob Beckel learned the hard way. He was campaign manager for Walter Mondale, who began the 1984 campaign by declaring he'd raise taxes. Jimmy Carter's old hands have learned another lesson as well.
We've got to be able to convince the American people that if they elect a Democrat as president, that the national security interests of this country are going to be protected.
While defense will be important, most strategists say the economy will be the key issue, and Dukakis has been stressing a message based on social concern. He avoids specifics, saying he'll finance his programs as he has in Massachusetts, by building a strong economy.
Any candidate who proposes a budget now for next year's doesn't know what budgeting is all about.
But new figures out this week now show the Massachusetts state budget facing a $77 billion deficit and an even larger one next year. That means new questions about the health of the economy and a definite cut in some states' social services. For a candidate whose main theme is competence, that's bad news, even though he vows to cut spending enough to balance his budget.
You don't sit around, you don't let writing pile up. You take action, you make some difficult choices. We've got an administration that's been in office for 8 years that won't make those choices.
With the nomination now in sight, Dukakis may look more relaxed these days, but he knows he has his work cut out for him, and the coming months will require some fancy footwork. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
White House officials tonight started raising the threat that President Reagan may veto the whole defense spending bill. This follows a vote today in the House for new deep spending cuts in Mr. Reagan's Star Wars missile defense program. Launch technicians, astronauts, and rescue teams put on a full-scale emergency evacuation drill today at Space Shuttle Launch Pad 39B in Florida. The scenario included a make-believe fire and explosion at the pad and astronauts faking injuries. NASA has put off again the first shuttle flight since Challenger exploded. The new target date is August 25th. It could slip to September or beyond. The United States today asked an international trade panel to settle a long-running dispute with Japan over Japanese import quotas on U.S. beef and citrus fruit. Talks between the two nations broke down last night in Washington. A U.S. trade representative, Clayton Yeiter, charged that the Japanese offered no significant lowering of their trade barriers against U.S. farm products.
In the years that followed the war, from the East Coast to the West Coast, came the stirrings of a dream and the planting of small trees. And the children played in the yards, and the new homes smelled of paint, and the six-room Dutch colonials had rec rooms for the kids. And the fathers worked a long day, and the mothers learned to be alone, and the mortgages got paid, and the savings started to grow. And the colleges opened their doors, and the kids moved farther away, and another house was home. And your families felt pride more and more across the land, because the homes were in their names, and the dream was in their hands. And we were there. We were there. We're America's savings institutions, federally insured, personally involved, your partners in the American dream.
Excuse me.
No problem. We know about kaopectate too.
Kaopectate actually absorbs the germs that can cause diarrhea.
Kaopectate bags. The diarrhea specialist.
Sarah, keep an eye on your brother.
No matter what size your business, no matter what size the job, Konica copiers are ready. Konica, capturing the imagination.
Another high-profile drug bust today. Federal officials in Florida say they seized more than 4 tons of cocaine from the British-registered vessel Amazon Sky. The drugs were hidden in a shipment of 9,000 hollowed-out wooden boards from Brazil. They were being shipped to several major U.S. cities. 3 people are under arrest. Federal aviation officials today expanded inspections of older Boeing 737 planes. The inspections started after part of the roof came off an Aloha Airlines jet at 24,000 feet last week. The FAA says it has found evidence of corrosion in the Aloha and in other 737s that were built using an old process for sealing layers of airplane skin. In all, the FAA says 291 of the 737s were built this way. You should soon be receiving a historic document in your mail. It will come from the federal government, and officials say it marks the first time the government has tried to reach every resident directly by mail regarding a public health crisis. As Eric Ingberg reports, the crisis is AIDS.
Rolling off the presses now, the biggest single health education project the government has ever tried. 107 million copies of the booklet Understanding AIDS will be mailed, one to every home in the country.
The household mailing of Understanding AIDS is the closest we can come to making something required reading in every American home.
The 8-page brochure lays out the Surgeon General's AIDS explanations and warnings in blunt language rare for an official document. AIDS is not spread, the book declares, by insect bites, toilet seats, or casual contact. Risky behavior includes sharing drug needles and engaging in some types of sexual practices. For the first time in any federal publication aimed at the public, the book talks about the dangers of anal sex and endorses the use of condoms as the best safeguard short of abstinence.
We felt the time had come when we could make clear, simple, authoritative statements on how AIDS is and is not transmitted.
Although political pressures are building for mandatory AIDS testing, in this booklet, the government for the first time declares that tests are not needed for people who have avoided risky behavior. The reaction from those who work with AIDS, including the gay community, was overwhelmingly positive.
It's balanced, it's informative, it's candid, and I think most important, it's non-alarming.
But one conservative critic of the Surgeon General disputed the government's experts.
You get the impression that none of us have anything to fear from associating with people who have the virus, or who have ARC, or who have AIDS. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Despite this $17 million program, officials know many people will be missed. They are struggling for ways to reach these have-nots: the homeless, transient drug users, people who cannot read. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
A Mother's Day report out today said almost 75% of poor Americans over the age of 65 are women. The Washington-based Older Women's League found, and I quote, "Growing old is an economic nightmare for women," and called that, again quote, "the inevitable consequence of women's lifelong economic status." The report suggested women send Mother's Day cards to members of Congress with the message, "Motherhood is a two-way street. She listened to your problems, now it's your turn," end quote. Scientists at the San Diego Wild Animal Park today began using a condor-shaped puppet to feed the first California condor chick conceived and hatched in captivity. The baby condor, called Moloko, was hatched last week, and the feeding program will prevent the chick from seeing a human for at least a month. A spokesman said, "We want to build a sort of bonding with something more like its mother." Since the chick will be full-grown in 8 months, it eats enormously, every hour and 1/2 to 2 hours.
For some people, minor mouth pain can be major trouble. For them, a toothache or denture pain can put them right out of business. Introducing new Maximum Strength Anbesol with the most pain reliever you can buy. It gives maximum strength relief on contact, which means before you can say Tchaikovsky, the pain's gone. New Maximum Strength Anbesol in liquid and gel. For minor mouth pain, it's major relief.
You hear the thunder, the call of the road.
Whether it's the roar of an available turbo or 16-valve engine, Grand Am is sheer driving excitement.
Get on your Pontiac and ride, Pontiac ride.
And now, with $400 back direct from Pontiac, you can really cash in on Grand Am excitement.
Get on your Pontiac. Rebuild excitement. Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Go on a dinner I can't pronounce. By the ounce. Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Give me a steak and I won't be through. I got a taste for some real food.
Thief, real food for real people.
Justice delayed, the saying goes, is justice denied. And in courts all across the country, log jams of cases pile up. You'd think private enterprise would come up with an answer. Well, it has. And critics are upset about that. Jerry Bowen explains.
In trendy fast-track Los Angeles, about the only thing that moves slower than a Friday freeway is justice. Forget what you see on television. The real LA law is not flashy or sexy. It's painfully slow. Southern California is the lawsuit capital of the world.
The backlog is horrendous. I mean, we tell people not to take the law into their own hands, to file, they come in, and they wait 5 years. Now, that's really not very responsive.
Or what's the 5-year date in this case?
June 15th, Your Honor. Los Angeles County Superior Court, Division 1, Judge Richard Byrne presiding. The clock has been running on many of these civil cases for nearly 5 years, approaching the statute of limitations.
Getting that close to the 5-year statutes is not unusual because of the congestion in the court system.
Routine.
And very routine.
Your Honor, I represent a 57-year-old secretary who was involved in a motor vehicle accident on April 12th.
Across town in a private courtroom, the routine is anything but slow. Presiding, one of the growing army of rent-a-judges.
The reason that the rent-a-judge program has become so popular, I think, is, first of all, it's quick.
Instead of waiting 4 or 5 years for a court date,
With Judicate, you could do it literally in as short as 4 or 6 weeks.
A company called Judicate is building its own courtrooms in Los Angeles and New York. In all, some 400 rent-a-judge firms have sprung up across the country in the last 2 years to meet the demand. Johnny Carson used a rental judge to settle his latest multi-million-dollar divorce. Valerie Harper is taking her $180 million breach of contract case to a hired judge. And recently, some San Diego homeowners settled a construction dispute through the private system, a system where the opponents agree to pay a retired judge to decide the case, agree ahead of time on whether his decision will be final or can be appealed back to the regular courts.
They can tailor the case in any fashion they want to tailor it. If they want an advisory opinion, they'll get an advisory opinion. If they want a binding one, like this will be, any way they want to do it, they're in charge.
And in the long run, it's cheaper, saving years of attorney's fees and court costs. But the $250 an hour fee for the rental judge has critics complaining about a double system of justice.
I think it is outrageous for only one class of citizens to be able to afford justice. Justice is blind, and when it allows the wealthy to get there before the poor, there's something wrong with it.
And number 13, Weatherford versus Toyota.
Proponents say it's simply a matter of choice. There's the justice system.
I would like to see a settlement if possible.
And the shortcut. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
The way cheap phones break down, the companies that make them must do some pretty interesting tests.
You hear me? I hear you. I heard something.
Real torture tests. And ring tests.
I heard it. What did you hear? I heard it. I didn't hear it. Are you sure you heard it?
Well, for over 100 years, AT&T's made phones that pass the real test.
It's nothing. I dropped the phone.
You get what you pay for. AT&T, the right choice.
My grandkids always told me all about their trips, but I could never be there to share it with them. You see, I have a bladder control problem. But thank goodness I finally found the protection I want with a TENS.
A TENS undergarments. It's the only one with gathers, so a TENS can gap less than others and provides you better protection.
Now I'm as big a part of their lives as they are of mine.
Hey, everybody, smile.
For protection you can live with, a TENS.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new extra strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new extra strength Malox Plus.
Oh no. Uh-oh.
Spills clean up fast with the cordless Hoover Double Duty. Dry spills and wet spills too. The Hoover Double Duty. It eats, drinks, and says, Happy Mother's Day.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Everything you need to know about bringing up baby in the 80s.
A special 5-hour series, Baby Boomer Babies, this week on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on Eyewitness News, a Channel 5 investigation prompts the airport authority to look at the way it does business and make some changes.
Metro Mayor Bill Boner recommends mandatory drug tests for all city employees. And Nancy Reagan invites some young Nashvillians to Washington.
Details on these stories and more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
York has the royal treatment for you and your castle. A $100 rebate when you buy a high-efficiency heat pump or central air conditioning with gas heating. Get a free home survey and you could win a trip for 2